Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host and a child of an all-powerful, perfectly loving God and an addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is an open to all addictions and afflictions organization dedicated to exploring the common threads of the differing manifestation of alcoholism, sharing tools, and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from various fellowships and experiences demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. Rico 12 is not allied or affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. This is Rico 12 speaker meeting number 410. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Dennis T., who has spoken in a handful of previous meetings. You can find all of those recordings on the Rico 12 podcast, anywhere you find podcasts. We are continuing our 12-week series on each of the 12 steps of recovery this week. Dennis will proceed with step 2 today. If you missed Debbie S. in step 1, you can always listen to older episodes on the podcast platform of your choosing. But I look forward to diving into this conversation here in a few minutes. But first, a few quick announcements. Rico 12 does offer a variety of recovery resources, including other podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, visit rico12.com. That's RECO12, like recovery12step.com, or check the chat and show notes for links. We're still seeking a few speakers for some of the 12-week series on the 12 steps that we've just started here last week. The steps that I still have available are 5, 10, and 11. So if any of those steps are like just itching at you and you want to speak on it, send me an email at rico12pod@gmail.com and we'll get things lined up. We here at Rico 12 are self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this message. For information on how to support us, I'll put information in the chat, also in the show notes of the podcast. It's also on the website at rico12.com/support. Thank you this last week to Nikki M and to Debbie for your donations. Your support, both financially and by word of mouth, truly makes a difference in helping us share these messages of recovery and hope. All right. Each week we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to each of us as listeners. Now I want to welcome today's guest speaker, Dennis T. Here's just a little bit about him. Dennis T. from Alaska joined SA on July 29th, 2014. After 40 years of searching for a solution, he was finally introduced to SA at age 52. He asked for a sponsor on day one and has worked his program every day since. He states that helping another sexaholic through the steps brings about the greatest connection to his higher power than anything else. Being used by God on a daily basis has changed his life and his relationships. Living free one day at a time by utterly abandoning himself to his higher power has given him a new way of living. Take it away, Dennis. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Justin. It's an honor to be here to talk about step 2 today. God, I just pray that your spirit flows. I need you, and we'll get right into it. I'll be working out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, 4th edition. So I'm going to go to page 59 first. And I'm going to read step 2, because that's really what we're here to talk about today is step 2 and my experience, strength, and hope around that. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. You know, when we look at that sentence, came to believe, it says, came to believe that a power. We agnostics is not here to, where I'm coming to believe in a power. In my case, I had a very strong faith tradition. I did believe in a power. But I think if we look a little closer in there, it says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. To me, that indicates that it's showing me that I'm relying upon me, that I am the power and don't know it. And the purpose of we agnostics is not so much to introduce me to a power greater than myself. It's there to introduce me to It's there to introduce me to the power that I have been relying on my whole life. I love God, but I didn't realize that I was relying upon me, the self, that I'm going to get this done, that I'm going to do this. And if I believe that I can do it, then I'm believing a lie. I have to realize that the self itself, as it's working, will try to convince me So if we look back on page 43, it tells me that once more, the very last paragraph, the sexaholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. And he says at certain times, not all the time. And that's where the lie can get me, because I believe that I can fight this, that I can delay that. But at certain times, if I'm not connected to power, other than if I'm connected to myself, the power of self, then I'm going to, at some time, it's going to come along. The subtle insanity, which precedes that first drink, will get me. If I am connected to power, I find that goes away. Except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. Now, if I look back on 25, it tells me really the same thing, because this whole step 2 is about connecting to power. It tells me in the very bottom paragraph, if I am a seriously sexaholic as we were, we believe there's no middle of the road solution. Like there's not God and me running the show. It's either one or the other. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible, step 1. And if we had passed into a region from where there is no return through human aid, we had but 2 alternatives. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could, and the other was to accept spiritual help. And that really ties in on page 44, where we agnostics begin. The first 43 pages introduced me to that I have an allergy of the body, and I have an obsession of the mind. And the obsession of the mind is the lie that will convince me at some point that it's okay to take that first drink. And for a sexaholic, that's the first look or the first thought. But it tells me in this paragraph, second paragraph, last sentence, to be doomed to a sexaholic death, which that's what I lived my whole life, trying to fight, trying to stop, trying to get free from, or to live on a spiritual basis, are not always easy alternatives to face. Now, when I first read that, I thought, well, no, that's a very easy alternative to face. But what I didn't realize was just how much I was relying on my own power to try to do this. And that's why it says a power greater than myself. I didn't know it. I was blind to it. I had a veil across there. But as I relied on the power of self, I kept trying to fight this. I kept trying to do this. But the book tells me on 45, first paragraph, lack of power. That was my dilemma. I have power, but I don't have power over the mental obsession that will convince me at some point to take that drink. And that's what has to go away. And I can't go to enough meetings. I can't read enough literature. I can't do enough to prevent that from happening. What has to happen is once I'm connected to the power, there's a miracle that takes place where that goes away. I don't know how it happens. I don't have any part of it. On page 84, when it describes this condition, it tells me at the top of 85, it says that we will see that it says we, at the very bottom of 84, we react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. See, it's not something that I can do A, B, and get C. It's something that I keep turning to God to stay connected to power, and then it happens. We will see that our new attitude toward lust or liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. I'm not doing anything. It just comes. That's the miracle of it. I'm not fighting it. Neither am I avoiding temptation. I feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. Well, I always thought when I first read that the problem was lust, but it's not. The purpose of step 2 is to come to see as we go through the work in step 2 that my reliance is not on God. I have a belief in God, but a reliance still on self. I can't have both. And it tells me in that paragraph on 45 that lack of power, that was my dilemma. And I had to find or connect to a power by which I could live. And it had to be a power greater than ourselves, greater than myself. My self power isn't working. It's it helps me in many areas of my life. I can be successful, but when it comes to this addiction, I need to utterly abandon myself to God. Like it says at the end of that third step prayer, that we thought well before taking this step, making this decision, this covenant with God, that I could at last utterly abandon myself to God. And I really believed that I had always been doing that. But the deeper I got into the work, the more I could see is I'm afraid. When I used to do my third step prayer, first coming in, I was afraid of what that meant to give him everything, to truly give up all the control, to stop fighting this, to not worry about what's going to happen tomorrow, but to just stay in the present moment with him. But it tells us on the next paragraph, well, that's exactly what this book is about. And what is it about? Well, its main object is to enable me to find and connect, the key word, connect to a power greater than myself, which will solve my problem. See, it doesn't say which will help me solve my problem, because I need to not really be in the equation any more than simply turning and going, God, help. I can't do this. I'm powerless. My sponsor taught me day one, God, I am powerless. I need your power. Please lend me your power just for today. And that changed my life. I was about on day 4 when the compulsion would hit. I'd never been able to not finish what it was bringing me to go participate in my disease. Day 4, I prayed that prayer and I felt like a wind. And while temptations came back very strongly, from that point, I've never had the compulsion come back and hit me. I still had a lot of work to do. I still wasn't connected to God, but I believe when we first come into program, long before we understand what resentments and these inventories are, God's very willing to, God, help with this temptation. And he comes right in and relieves me of the temptation. If I'll go to him, if I pause and take the drink, God has never removed the effects of the drink I've taken. So if I'm still taking sips and drinks, then I'm still in my active addiction. And the truth is, and we're going to see as we go through this book, that when I'm connected to power, that subtle insanity which comes upon me is gone. It truly is gone. And if I'd have told you 6 years ago or 7 years ago that I would ever be in a place where I truly do not experience lust. Now, I don't know how long that I could be in my resentments and anger before I start experiencing it. I don't know. And I don't know how or why God took it the way he did take it, but he did. And I live free from it. Now, I do not live free from, I currently have our daughter staying here where she had a little baby, my anger toward her, my resentment. But I really have learned from that. Where's that coming from? Well, I go back into my little self, which is that I have expectations on how she should do things or shouldn't do them, or I'm not in the present moment anymore. And there's 4 aspects of self that I get to look at. The first one being the noticer. I have a little acre of land. And if I'll just stay in that little acre and fertilize it and stay there, it's in the present moment that I can be there. I can take care. I can let God use me and help others. But when the noticer all of a sudden pops up and he starts looking at what they're doing in their acre or what they're not doing, what they should be doing, immediately my peace and serenity goes away. And I lose my peace and serenity. I'm back in self because I'm not in the present moment. And then the other, there's 4 aspects of self: the noticer, the victim, the scorekeeper, and then the judge, jury, and executioner. And once I start into that process, I don't know how long I could be there, but I'm sure that lust or some type of temptation would come back. Whether I participate, I pray not. I never want to go back. But that's where my 10th step comes in, that I get to truly stay connected to God through working that 10th step. But we come into we agnostics, we're going through our 2nd step. It's telling me here that I have a lack of power. And it's easy when we come in and we go, well, yeah, I'm powerless. I admit that, but we're not giving up the control. I was still trying to, through self-knowledge, through enough meetings, I was still trying to control and manage all of this sexaholism, and it wasn't working too well. I did stay sober, but sober is not well. And I really believe if the focus of the program is to stay sober, we can never recover. I believe that because it's not sustainable. Because I'm still sort of relying on me to do all these things. And, I still suffer from the human problem, which if we look on page 52, it really spells out what is it that where am I spiritually fit? Am I connected to power? Or am I still suffering from these things? And if I'm connected to power, I live completely free from the lust, but at times I can go back into self. And here's what I experience. Am I having trouble? It says we ask ourselves, second paragraph, why we shouldn't apply to our human problems the same readiness to change our point of view. My point of view only changes one way. I can't force it. I can't make it. Once I connect the power, that power floods in and my thinking is different. I'm on a different basis. I feel love and peace and joy and patience. I feel acceptance. When I go back into self, I feel fear. I feel resentment. I feel expectations. I feel like I want to disconnect my heart from another human being. But it says, we were having trouble. I said, we turn these into questions. And I like to add while sober, even. Let's do it. I'm already sober. Am I having trouble with personal relationships while sober? At times, I can't seem to control my emotional natures while sober. Do I fall prey to misery and depression while sober? I have trouble making a living. Do I have feelings of uselessness? Am I full of fear? Am I unhappy? I can't seem to be of real help to other people. Those right there for me are an indication that self is back in control. When God came and asked the man for the keys to his heart, like, are you really ready to give them all to me? And he said, oh, yes. And he hands them to God. And God said, are these all of them? And he goes, well, yes, Lord, all but a couple. And you need not worry about those. Well, God handed him back the keys and said, either you trust me with all or you don't trust me at all. So on 53, this is where it really, for me, the big book, I awakened to this whole concept of, me and God versus God having all the control. If you look down at you look at the first sentence in that paragraph. It says, logic is great stuff. We liked it. We still like it. It is not by chance we were given the power to reason. And I draw you to that because that's a small r. It's not capitalized. In this book, when Bill capitalizes something, he's talking about a power. Maybe it's a power that we're relying upon one way or the other. Either I am relying upon self or I'm relying upon God. So it says down in the next paragraph, when we became sexaholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, not lust. It's the self. It's because I'm relying on that power instead of the power of God. We could not postpone or evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. So what's my choice to be? Now, when I first read that, I thought, well, is he everything or he's nothing? I believe in God. So he's everything. That's not what this is asking. This is saying that either God is everything in my life and I'm going to rely upon him, or I'm going to rely upon myself and he is nothing. I either trust him with all or I don't trust him at all. And the truth is, when I came in, I didn't trust him at all, but I didn't know that. I believed I did. I once prayed and realized as I was going through this process about 10 years ago or 11 years ago that I said, God, you're just not better than my lust. And I think he was happy that I could tell him the truth and say, let me show you what I can do. And that's exactly what he did. So the question is, either God is everything or he is nothing means, am I going to rely upon him and utterly abandon myself to him? Or am I still going to try to control this? Now, the self, which I believe is the fallen nature, the darkness, whatever you want to call it, will whisper in my mind to convince me, you got this. I can do this, especially when things start going well. I let up because I think the default is to go back into wanting to control. But it says in the next paragraph, arrived at this point, we were squarely confronted with the question of faith. And I write there, not belief. Roy Kay in the White Book says, I had a belief in God without surrender. I had a belief in God without surrender, and that belief availed me nothing. So I think faith is not about belief. Faith is about reliance upon. Do I have my reliance upon God? If God has 100% of the control and I take back 1%, I believe I have 100% back. I'm back into the darkness. I'm full of fear. I'm self-seeking, trying to get what I need. I'm being selfish to others. And I'm getting resentful. And I'm going to need a drink if I stay there long enough. But it goes, we couldn't duck the issue. Some of us have already walked over. Here it is. They capitalize it, the bridge of reason. It's introducing me to, listen, when it said a power greater than ourselves, that indicates that there is a power other than that. Myself is a power. And I had been trying to use it my whole life. And I've been lied to that, yes, I can do this when I can't. So it's telling me now the bridge of reason toward the desired shore of faith, the promise of the new land. The new land is when we step to shore and say, okay, God, I'm going to start with this third step prayer. I am going to turn my will and my life over to you. I'm going to give you all of it. Me making that decision is good, but 4 through 9 is where it happened for me, is where I really got rid of all the things that have been blocking me, those things that were keeping me in bondage. It goes down a little further. We were grateful that reason, capital R, there's 2 power sources, self-centered fear or God-centered love, had brought us so far, but somehow we couldn't quite step ashore. When I'm taking a man through this work, maybe the first time they don't quite get it, but at some point they go, I know why I'm not stepping to shore. I say, why? Because I'm afraid. And that was exactly why I was. When I did my third step, God, I offer myself to thee. I was afraid. I did it because my sponsor told me to say it and it was working, but I was afraid. The other day I asked God, because I'm no longer afraid. I want that. I never want to go back into the self again. And I said, God, you know my heart. You know I never want to go back. I don't ever want that control. Why don't you just take it? Take it for good. And I believe he laid on my heart. Why he wouldn't is because I want you to choose me. And he means choose me in the morning, which I do. I love. That's my favorite time of the morning is to be with him. And then as I go through about my day, choose him through the day. I believe God's greatest gift is each and every one of you. And his greatest joy and delight is spending time with you. My higher power won't override my free will. But if I live surrendered to him, allowing him to have full reign of my life, and I don't do that perfectly, I don't think I'll ever be able to. When he's in control, my life just seems to fall into place. It doesn't mean there's difficulties. And I believe the difficulties that I'm kind of going through right now is giving me patience. It's teaching me to stay in my little acre of my land, that my daughter and those around me, that's his job, not mine. My job is to love them and serve them with his power. And my job when I get up is take the light that he has given me and go back into that darkness and help others that are willing to come out of that darkness. I have no power, but as that power flows in and through and they are exposed to that light, they want that light. And the ones that are ready will follow that light right back into the loving arms of God. And then they too will make the decision to turn their will and their life over to the care of God. And when we do that, as we go through that process where we start seeing and we start testing the waters, I did come to believe or start believing that there is a power greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. That not only could, but would and is. And that's the miracle of this section. On page 54, they finally call it what it is. What was that but a sort of faith? Because we've been relying on self the whole time. We didn't know it. We honestly were blind to it. Yes, we've been faithful, abjectly faithful. And here they finally say it what it is on the top of 54, the God of reason. 55, it goes on to say, we finally saw that faith in some kind of God was part of our makeup. It's either going to be in the dentist God, the God of dentists, or the God that has power, just as much as a feeling we have for a friend. It says that we found this great reality deep down within us. God was already with me all along. He's never left me. The power has always been there. It's not me. I don't have the power, but I get to turn and ask God, and that power floods in and through. And it says, we found the great reality deep within us. And in the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. And so it was with us. So for me, step 2, and especially helping somebody come in, is learning to step to that shore little by little. It just doesn't happen all at once. And I believe that's why we have a 10th step and 11th step. When I'm agitated, I pause. Why? Why am I agitated? Well, because thank you for time. I'm wanting to start controlling again. I need to do this or I need to do that. Well, the truth is, I need to detach with love and let God do what God does. Those are his children. I'm just here to be like a guide. And I get the best front row seat because when I go to work with a man, that spirit will come in and flow through and help one save two. It's really helping me more than it's helping them. So came to believe in a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. What is sanity? Connection to power is sanity. Disconnection from power is insanity. I'm either in the light, the love, the comforting presence and consciousness of presence of God, or I slip back into the darkness and into the insanity where I'm trying to self-seek because now I'm not okay and I need to get you and people to give me what I need so that I'm okay. It could be affirmation. It could be praise. It could be, in my case, in my sex addiction, it could just be anything that'll try to fill that God void. And if I'm in self, I want anything but God. But when I'm in connection to that power, I don't want anything but that. So we're always just one prayer away, one surrender away from stepping into that light. And it's just that simple. So as I go through my day, I can remember that, hey, God, he's back. Hey, God, I just want to be with you. And that's what step 2 introduced me to, was the power that I was relying upon. And I really could see it in step 5 after doing the inventories, just how destructive and dangerous that self-will, me wanting the power, really is. I hurt a lot of people. I blame them, but I could see where I was in my victim mentality. So I need that power. And it says in that one page, on page 44, and it says simple but not easy. It says, no, to be doomed to a alcoholic death or sexaholic death, or to live on a spiritual basis, are not always easy alternatives to face. Why is it not an easy alternative to face? Because it means death of self. It means that I stop existing. I let God. And when I do that, my thinking just changes. My relationship with my wife is better. When we actually enjoy, we can experience the intimacy into me, you see, into the heart. And so it is not an easy alternative to face. And I get to make it on a daily basis. God didn't say choose me. He wants me to choose him each day and throughout the day. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I really appreciate your share there and just love your wisdom and your point of view that you share about the self and the destruction of the self. Quick reminder to our live audience, if you have a question for Dennis, please type it in the chat. If you would like to remain anonymous, in other words, if you don't want me to read your first name when I ask the question, either direct message me or at the beginning of your question type anonymous, and we'll get to those questions. I've written down several questions that I'd like to ask you. I want to start kind of where you ended off though, Dennis. You said, the death of self is what needs to happen here. I need the self. Dennis, Justin, need to stop existing in the way of self. Man, that's one of the biggest fears of pretty much everybody coming into this program is if I give my will and my life over to the care of God, what will I even be? How do you address that fear, Dennis? Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
Well, I can't really address it or comfort them. That is just something that either the pain of living in the self gets to be so bad that they're willing to let God have it. And the minute that pain's relieved, my tendency would have been, was that I would take it back. And when I started seeing the vast differences, when I take it back, I'm hurting people. I'm full of anxiety. I'm suffering. And when I give it to him, I'm in peace. I wake up in the morning and instead of waking up with anxiety, or I used to wake up with lust, but that when that's gone, I'll wake up with an anxiety. And some mornings I can just wake up in the consciousness of his presence. I feel him. I always start my morning with a gratitude. And my biggest gratitude when I start out is, God, thank you for letting me wake up sober. I mean, I mean that from the depths of my heart. Where I left, I never want to go back there. It was a prison. So I think as we practice removing those blockers, that just is the natural process. And that starts on page 64 at the top when we getting ready to get into our inventory, our resentment inventory. Because it says, though our decision, which is our step 3 decision to turn our will and our life, exactly what you're saying, we can make the decision, we can make the statement and the covenant with God, but it said, even though that was a vital and crucial step, it'll have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. See, there's things blocking me from the shore. There's things blocking me from the spirit. There's things blocking me from being in connection to God. And as we start to experience it, like in the 3rd step, where he takes away my difficulties, thy power, that's what we get first. We start getting sober. Thy love, we start experiencing the presence of God, his love. And then we start experiencing thy way of life, which if a lust thought comes to my mind, I don't want that. Thy way of life is so beautiful. Now I don't want to go back. So I think we do it in increments. We dip our toe in the pool. We step to shore for a little bit. But remember, the self does not go quietly. But the more we keep praying, like if that's the darkness, and when I go to God and there's that battle, there is no battle between light and darkness. The light just crushes it. But I have to be willing. And the more I go to God, the more I want to be with God. My default is anything but God. I used to pray when I was little, or I would say, oh God, I can't wait to spend an eternity with you. But I couldn't stand to spend 5 minutes with him on earth. It was work. It was painful because I have to leave. I have to come into the present moment. But yeah, so I think it's just little by little.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I think that leads me to my next question here, Dennis. I think you and I are pre-recovery walks with God were fairly similar. We had a strong faith tradition. We believed deeply in the
Hmm.
God as we understood God at that time, and yet it didn't work.
No.
How has your relationship and your perception of God as you understand and understood God evolved over the last, 14, 13 years?
Yeah, it didn't work. And I believe that's a common theme with anybody that stepped into Sexaholics Anonymous is that none of our faith traditions worked or we wouldn't be here. And I had a very strong faith tradition. There was no doubt that I believed in God, and I would pray as I would be driving to go act out in my program, begging God. It didn't work. It never worked. I didn't realize that I had already taken a drink somewhere. And I didn't realize that I was already in a bunch of fear before I took the drink, or I was in a bunch of resentment. And I didn't realize I was already trying to control my life. I was trying to stop it. And the last thing if somebody would have told me is, no, just don't fight it. Let go. I would have never thought that. So yeah, it really is a process that we get to. In my faith tradition, it says pick up an instrument of death daily, and that instrument is so that and I didn't know that. I didn't know self was blocking me. When I came into this program, it opened my eyes to what was actually blocking me from allowing God, because God wouldn't override my free will. So I have to voluntarily give it up. Pass.
Yeah, I think he does. Now, you referenced picking up an instrument of death daily that you get from your faith tradition, and mine is similar. What does that look like in recovery? What does that mean to pick up your cross and go with it daily? What does that mean?
Well, that number one, that I have to recognize that I am absolutely powerless over self taking back over. I'm like a little kid that has to run up to his leg and go, "Hey, man, without you today, I'm a dead man." So when I get up and I do my third step prayer, it's in a different manner. It's like, God, I sacrifice this self to you. Like I'm asking him, so that you can do with me whatever you want today. I don't care. I want to be with you. The next part is relieve me of the bondage of self. So I think through doing the work, or I know through doing this work, I see how deadly the self is. It's defeating me. It's deadly. It's insidious. I will never be able to have a life of love and connection with other people until I have a life of love and connection with God first. And so I can't have all this connection with God and then be angry at somebody. God's like, nah, the person I love the least is the most I can love him. And if I'm disconnected from them, I'm disconnected from him. The two go together. If I sever from person, I'm severing from God. So I have to have a purity of heart. That only way I have a purity of heart, because I can't make any of this happen, is through connection. And I start that with that first prayer. God, I am powerless. And when I say I need your power, man, I need it today. I don't care if the last 11 years will not do anything for me today. I know I don't want to test how long the residual effect would go, because I love being with them. I'm not doing it because I have to. My sponsor drilled in me, you're not doing this because you have to. You get to. Every time I'd say have to, he goes, you mean you get to? If I was underwater, I have to breathe to live. And if I was needing a breath and finally I got free and I went to that surface, I'm not having to breathe, I'm getting to breathe. And that's the same way. So my third step prayer is how I start that, picking up that instrument, because I'm asking God to do it for me. And with my whole heart, meaning it. I no longer want to hold on to it. I really don't, because I hurt my wife. I hurt my children. I'm full of fear. I have resentment. One thing that's still really difficult for me is the judgment. Man, if I judge even the slightest thing, any kind of judgment, I'm back in the prison house. So that's what God's really been working on me this last year, is to see when I'm judging. And because I didn't realize I'm judging everything constantly. And that's like, I think when he takes self, does he take all of it? Well, apparently not, because he shows me different things. And right now, that's the one that I'm really praying. And I can't watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. I can't watch for judgment. I need the connection of the Spirit. As the Spirit guides and leads me, I can see it if I'm connected to the Spirit. I'll see the resentment thought come in. I'll see the judgment thought come in, and I'll immediately surrender them. But if I'm not connected, man, I'll be so deep into it and then suffering and realize, oh, I need to get back connected to God.
I think that's so powerful, and I love that analogy of have to versus get to. You know what? If I'm coming up out of the water and feeling like I have to breathe, and I get out of the water, I get to breathe, and that's that. I think that's a powerful um, analogy in this work that we're doing. Dennis, you referenced just a few minutes ago that pre-recovery, you would be begging God, pleading with God, white knuckle, just desperation with God while you're driving to act out in your addiction to deliver you, and it didn't work. What is the difference between that type of desperation, white knuckled prayer and the connection where the connection actually happens? Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Well, the difference is I'm experiencing the consciousness of the presence of God, but the voice that's whispering about the lust in the first place is gone. I mean, I'll tell you this. The other day, I was going out to shovel my driveway. We had a bunch of snow, and I was just enjoying God's presence. All of a sudden, the thought came about the lady across the street in her window. I'm like, oh my God, I do not want to change or lose what I have here. A couple days later, I was going back out, and this is the first time I recognized I haven't experienced any lust for a couple, I don't know, 2 years, a year. I don't know how long it's been since I experienced the thought of a temptation came. But as I walked out onto my porch, I felt it like kind of come upon me. And I'm like, whoa. One of the things with living connected to God is I experienced the consciousness of his presence. And when I felt that, just that lust kind of come around, and it wasn't a temptation, it was just like lust. It really felt very much the same, like the consciousness of the presence of something else. And I don't know how to explain what lust is, but it felt spiritual. And man, I immediately just recoiled because I don't want no part of that. I really don't. I don't need it because I get what I need from God, but it doesn't mean I don't suffer in these other areas at times. But the scary, I don't know if it's scary. I just accept for right now I'm free. I pray to God I never go back. I don't think about that or ever have fear about going back because I believe that would be from the enemy or the self trying to get me into some kind of fear. But I am a sexaholic and I know I need God. It's not that I don't need to be away from lust, which I don't want any part of it. I need to be connected to God. Sober is not well. Pass.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you're related what you related there just now about that, walked out on your front porch and you felt that lust. Um, Earlier you said that you haven't felt the compulsion for a
No.
long time, a long time. You've had temptation.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the difference between temptation and compulsion. Talk to us about the difference of what
Yeah.
where that comes from and how to resolve, I guess, those things.
Well, the compulsion was like, I'm going home. My family's ready. We're going to go camping. The camper's all loaded up. We're going to have a great weekend. I leave work early, and the compulsion would hit me to go pick up a prostitute. And I'd like, oh God, no, 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 please, no. I don't want to do this because I'm going to be sad. I'm going to have to act like I'm all happy when I get home. And I'd make it past the first turn. And I'm like, oh, good, I'm going to make it. I couldn't make it home. When that compulsion would hit, there's nothing. I would go to church early without my family to set up IT and get everything done. And the compulsion would hit with like an hour before service start. My family shows up and I'd have to leave and go pick up a prostitute. And I hated it. The difference is when that compulsion left, I was driving down our road, getting ready to go on the highway. Now, turning left from getting on the highway is where I've gone thousands of times to pick up prostitutes. And as I wasn't even thinking about it, I was just driving along, just enjoying God. And all of a sudden, that temptation hit me, or the thoughts of all those that would be there. It's kind of getting dark. And I'm like, oh, and I immediately prayed and surrendered it. I made a quick call. And in that moment, I was saying, man, my program's not working. I just got hit with this temptation. And the guy said, what do you mean it's not working? You prayed and you called me. Celebrate. And that's the difference is I can maybe get hit with a temptation, but I have the tools now. But I think now, 11 years later, I would have to go pretty far down the road to get those types. And I don't know why it's not like that anymore. And it could come back. I pray to God it never does, but it's gone. So in the words between recovered, recovery, I really believe I'm recovered in that part of my life. In the recovery sense is, do I still struggle with self? And I do. But I thank God we have tools, the 10th and 11th, and working with others and coming to places like this gives me I'm going to go out with my wife after this. We're going to go do something. And it just gives me a spirit that I can truly be with her and enjoy her and be present. I want nothing more. I don't care what we do. I just want to be present with her. Pass.
Thank you, Dennis. And in the last couple of weeks, I had an experience where I was just hit by something out of the blue, just pounded me in the face. And all of a sudden I thought, what am I going to do with this? And I reached out. I reached out to you. I reached out to a couple of other people, and each one of you clapped and said, the program's working, in one way or another. Look
Yeah.
what's happening. And that's just a beautiful testimonial of working the program. I, I recoil, I pray, I talk to somebody, I move forward, and it's a beautiful thing. All right, have an anonymous question from our live audience. This person says, how did the compulsion leave you? Was it immediate? And because of the steps and immediately afterwards, what would you say to a person if the compulsion and temptation comes back? And I'm going to copy that into the general text or chat so you can see it also, Dennis, but
Yeah,
without the
I
person.
hear that though. I'm just telling you, I was on day 4 and I was writing about some of my early childhood abuse. And when I was writing about the person, which was a family member that was abusing me, right away I got like, that thing came back, and I'd never not been able to not do it. And I just said the prayer my sponsor gave me. I was doing everything my sponsor told me. I said, God, I'm powerless. I need your power. Please lend me your power just for today. And honestly, what I felt, I'm back in my swing. I felt like this wind hit me. And for the first time in my life, I felt relief from that compulsion. Now, I always had hundreds and hundreds of temptations after that, but I was relieved. That compulsion has never came back. I do believe if I start drinking again, there's a very high percentage of chance if I get that. And I don't know if this is true. I'm just telling you, this is what I believe, that if I start putting that little sips and that poison back in my body, eventually at some point I will be like, oh my God, what did you just do? Every time I crossed another boundary, it was devastating. I thought, what did you just do? I don't have any control if I take any drinks, and I don't have any control to not take any drinks. I only have go to God. That's it. And let God do for me what I can't do for myself. It honestly is a miracle that I'm not drinking. I struggled for years, even through the program, still taking sips, still looking here, taking drinks, and it's gone.
Yeah, and I want to share something that someone shared with me once that was a great wisdom. You know, if that thought, that compulsion, the temptation, the trigger, whatever it is, keeps coming back to my mind over and over again, the word of wisdom that was shared with me is I need to be willing to surrender, to go through this process at least one more time, every time. And that could be 150 times in a day,
Yeah.
or it could be once. Whatever that looks like, I need to be willing to do that. And that's been very helpful to me.
Let
Dennis,
me add one thing real
yeah, go
quick.
ahead, please do.
In the first 43 pages, in the doctor's opinion, it outlines what the allergy of the body is and the phenomena of craving. And the next 43 pages, it really shows us what the obsession of the mind is. And it's the subtle insanity. It's actual insanity that precedes the first drink. So I think that's what we're describing. And if I fall prey to it because I'm not connected to power, the poison's in my body, man, I just think I'm open for, it's just, I'm just going to keep drinking because of the phenomenon of craving. And I'm in active addiction. When we connect to the power, that goes away. It just does.
Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead. Yeah. Dennis, I want to ask you a question now that I understand. I think I get it, but there's still some confusion there in my mind. You mentioned earlier, and you were referencing these promises on the top of page 85, I believe it is. Yeah, that things just happen automatically. We see
Yeah.
that these things are given with us without any thought or effort on our part. And you said, I can't do A plus B and get C. Something happens in there that's a magic part of the equation. I'm just expounding on that just a little bit. I must turn to God for that. Now, so often I've heard people share in different places in recovery that it's like a recipe. I just follow the instructions and I'm going to
Yeah.
get what comes out of it. And that's where my, I guess, haze is right here. A plus B may not always equal C unless there's that bit, but following the recipe is the magic wand experience. Talk to me a little bit about that. Help me understand that.
Yeah. If I'm out of my own self will, out of my own self knowledge, remember we were talking before the thing, and I think it was you, maybe it was somebody else, that it's not about self knowledge, it's about knowledge of self. If I think out of my own self will that I can do A, go to all these meetings, and then do B, do all this stuff, that I will get C, then I'm still have maybe a little pinky in there trying to control. And it just doesn't work for me. It didn't work. That's what I mean. I can't make it happen. If somebody would have told me when I first came in, just go to God, I'd have probably turned around and walked out the door because I'd gone to God 1,000 times. It doesn't work. And it wasn't that I had a lack of belief in God. When it came to my sexaholism, God couldn't help me because Dennis was still in charge and I didn't see it. I had to see that. And it really comes to absolute, like it says, utterly abandoning myself to God. It tells us we cease fighting anything or anyone. I'm not fighting it. The
Oh,
sanity
that
is restored. Go ahead.
that's very helpful. Thank you for clarifying that and helping me see that um, potential conundrum, but you've clarified it, so it's not. Dennis, you talked about the four aspects of self, and then you talked about the judgment part being the one that you're working on, that God's got you working on right now and exposing to you. Let's go through those a little bit. You talked about the noticer,
Yeah.
the tendency to look at others and say, well, that person is or isn't doing this, and I'm feeling off because of that. Let's talk a little bit more about the victim, the scorekeeper, and the judge, jury, and executioner.
Well, that's my biggest one that I suffered from in my life was the victim mentality. I would actually take what you would say in my self's will, would take what you would say, my wife would say, and I would twist it so that I could be the victim. I don't know why. As I went through this work this last time, um, that came out and I could see it in high definition, but I could. And all these people written on that list were not my perpetrators, they were my victims. Because now I would take actions out of being in my victim mentality. The scorekeeper is just me in my self's will looking at what you have done to me. And the judge, jury, and executioner that's the illness of the mind. I really believe that if I'm in self, man, I'm going to always be looking at what you're doing or what you're not doing. And I think it's just a ruse or whatever that word is, rouge or whatever, so that I don't look at myself. And as we get into the 4-step work, I can't tell you how you can watch a sponsee as he's getting into it, come up with all these reasons why this or that, or, well, my faith tradition is because I think the self knows that its days are numbered. I think it's going to get exposed. And when that self gets exposed, like it did for me, I could see that, oh my gosh, this isn't just me having control. This thing is defeating me. It's hurting others. It is so destructive of a force that it's not just an inconvenience. It's really, honestly, trying to kill me, and it's hurting all those people around me. So I was lucky to get, by my current sponsor, to get shown this self, to be awakened to it. That was a big, big blessing to be able to really get awakened to that, because I couldn't see how much I was still trying to be in control and how deadly it was. It's dangerous.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Before we wrap up, Dennis, do you have any final words of wisdom for us?
Just don't fight it. Just really go to God and follow the instructions in the book. And even as far as going to God, ask from this moment forward in your recovery, ask God everything. Go to him and ask him, hey, God, how do I do this? Start making it personal, because the more we have contact with our personal relationship with our higher power, the more that it gets revealed and that we can see. Because I can't learn it. I have to just ask God to do it. And he does. Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dennis. And we did have one more question come in. We're not going to have time to get to it. Can I send you that question and you respond and I can get it out in the chat in the
Sure.
Rico 12 chat? Perfect. Thank you so much, Dennis, for an amazing Rico 12 speaker meeting. If we missed your questions, come join our Rico 12 WhatsApp group. You can do that by sending an email to rico12pod@gmail.com. And we'll address that in the group there. And also, if you would like to, Dennis, are you okay if somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, I'd like to get a hold of Dennis to connect them with you?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. So if you want to get in contact with Dennis, email me once again at rico12pod@gmail.com and I'll get you connected with Dennis. All right. Come back next week as we continue our 12-week series on the 12 steps with step 3. Candace B., who has spoken to us once before in meeting number 359, will share her experience, strength, and hope on step 3. She'll be coming to us from Africa. I can't remember which country, either South Africa or somewhere in Southeast Africa. Excited about that. There are still a few steps that need to be covered in this series. So if 10 or 11 are speaking to you, please reach out to me and we'll get those lined up. All right. We're going to launch out of here. Dennis will pray us out with the submission prayer.
Yeah, it's on page 51 or 52 of the Step into Action book. God, I give this day to you. Establish the work of my hands and the steps of my feet, the words of my mouth, the direction of my gaze, the thoughts of my mind, and especially the attitude of my heart. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dennis. And everybody remember there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Work this. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
It ain't about the body, it ain't about the skin. It's the lie that whisper you'll be whole if you give in. It's the high before the hollow, the click before the fall. It's the ache that never satisfies no matter what you saw. They told me it was natural, just boys being boys, but I was choking down poison dressed up like a choice. And now I'm calling it by name, no more hiding in the fog. It ain't just porn I'm fighting, it's the God I made of want. Porn of problem, lust is the thief, selling us heaven and leaving us grief. I wanted to love, but I learned how to crave. Now I'm digging through ashes and calling it brave. She ain't an object and I ain't a king. Porn is the problem, not just a thing. And what about her? Yeah, the other side. The girl who learned early she was worth what she supplied. She didn't want to be seen, she wanted to be wanted. Now she's starved for attention and Instagram haunted. It's the hunger to be lusted, mistaken for love. And both sides end up empty, beneath and above. Two mirrors cracked, reflecting shame, chasing validation instead of names. Porn is the problem, it sells a fake cure, turns humans to products, makes touch feel impure. We thought we were free, but we're slaves in disguise, scrolling through bodies with dead in our eyes. This ain't just a screen, it's a spiritual war. Porn is the problem, and we can't ignore. I want more than a moan behind a glassy screen. I want covenant, not dopamine. She ain't here for my escape, she's the temple, not the bait. Porn is the problem, but truth is the light. I'm learning to see her with heaven in sight. I'm laying down idols, I'm turning from shame. And love don't come cheap, it comes with a name. I ain't cured, but I'm done with the game. Porn is the problem, and I'm not the same. I used to worship lust, now I'm learning how to love.